Hi, I'm Graham and welcome to the GT Woodshop. If you subscribe to this channel, and if you don't you should, then you will have seen my review on the Incra LS-TS Positioner System. I'll pop a link above and in the description below. Hopefully you will have also seen my review on the Axminster overhead crown guard. Again, I'll pop a link up and down below in the description. What I haven't reviewed is the Jessem hold down system that I also use. So I'll do a mini review of that first, but what I really want to talk about in this video is using those three products together and how well they do or don't gel. So the Jessem Clear Cut Stock guides, to give them their correct name, currently available for £285 in the UK. That's quite a bit of dosh to spend, but what price is the safety of your fingers? I think that's what the manufacturers are playing on. Incidentally, that £285 does not include the adapters that you need if you're going to mount it on top of the Incra fence. That's these little blocks here that screw down into the rails on top of the fence, and then the stock guide rail proper, if I can use that phrase, screws down onto those. Using the hold downs, as I prefer to call them, is pretty damn simple. Now, I've seen two confusing instructions on how to set them. On the manufacturer's site, there is an instruction approach that says put the timber underneath the aluminium cast round at the bottom, just let it drop down onto the top of the timber, lock them off, and you're set. On one of the websites that I've just looked up to find out the latest price, and that website was Woodworkers Workshop, I'll put a link below. In their description of the product, it doesn't say to do that. It says to place the timber underneath so that the nylon wheels are in contact, and then to apply your preferred amount of pressure down onto it to get it to lock in place. Now, here's one of my issues with this product. If you use the way the manufacturer says and you set the hold down onto the timber using the bottom of the bracket as a guide, then the resultant amount of pressure may well be the correct amount of pressure, but it means that you've got to push far harder to get it to pass the piece across the saw blade. That's quite a lot of pressure to have to put on, in my opinion. Whereas if I take them out the way, it runs lovely and smooth. My opinion, again, and all of this is just my opinion, is that the more pressure I have to put on the workpiece to pass it across the blade, the more chance I have of slipping. So that it concerns me a little when it's that tight. If I use the other method and drop it down onto the wheels and apply a little bit of pressure, then the piece is much easier to move, but it's also much easier for the piece to move back. So I'm not necessarily going to be setting the correct amount of pressure unless I really push it down, in which case I'm kind of back to where I was before. So my second issue with the Jessem hold downs is when you're cutting small pieces, which I do more than I cut big panels. With a larger panel, I've still got room to use my shop fabricated push stick on the outside and push it through nice and simple. If I'm cutting small pieces, so if I want a 30mm piece I need to have the stock guides up tight against the fence. I can't use my push stick. I'm back to using my piece of ply, but my piece of ply won't go through there, or even worse, if I use a pre-made one, I've then got to go underneath and it all gets a bit ungainly and a little bit awkward. But that being said, they still make me feel much safer when I'm using the table saw, because they're also stopping kickback. So that's the Jessem Clear Cut Stock guides. Now let's start putting it all together. So the Incra System, without the Jessem Clear Cut Stock guides on top, slides like a dream. Beautiful product to use, incredibly accurate, etc, etc. Put the Jessem Clear Cut Stock guides on, it makes it a little harder to move. Not an incredible amount, but just a little bit more effort required. And as mentioned, it can all get a little bit fiddly when you start dealing with smaller pieces. Now let's bring the overhead crown guard back into play. As soon as I put the blade guard back into position, the blade is obscured, which makes me feel a little uncomfortable. But when I lower the blade guard down into its correct position to cut, then my fingers are protected from the blade. So it was just a case of getting used to the fact that I can't see the blade anymore. And given the fact that the blade guard itself will rise up out of the way, the wheel allows the piece to just roll underneath, and the gas assisted strut helps it to just pop up out the way. So it took me a while to get used to it, but I've overcome my discomfort at not being able to see the blade now. Then if I bring the fence back in, you can see that as long as I'm cutting a wider piece, everything works together really well. The Jessem Clear Cut Stock guides keep the piece nicely up against the fence, held in place. They help to stop kickback, which makes me feel great. The dust extraction on the blade guard works superbly, and the blade is covered, and like I said, it all feels great. But it all goes completely to pot as soon as I start to cut small pieces. So I've now got the fence set for a 25mm cut. I'm going to have to move you around to show you from 2 or 3 different angles to see how ungainly and awkward it's all become. The clear cut stock guides get in the way of the blade guard dropping down so that it can perform its job of covering the blade, protecting my fingers, and allowing dust extraction to work. So in this position, it's no longer a dust extractor, it's more of a dust deflector, which still helps. It helps to localize the spread of the dust, but it doesn't carry it away from the work area. It's impossible to set the clear cut guides when the blade guard is in place and you're cutting small pieces. You've got to move the fence out the way and try and set the stock guides, or you've got to move the blade guard out the way and then bring the fence up to where you want it and set the stock guides. So in summary, the Incra system, absolutely fantastic. Buy it again without hesitation. The Jessem hold downs, not so sure. Awful lot of money now. I'm certain I didn't pay that much for them when I bought them, but it was many moons ago. That being said, really good product. Would have to think long and hard. The overhead crown guard, I'm not so sure I would buy it again. Incredibly well made product, but the design of it is one that I don't think lends itself to my setup in particular. And that draws this video to a close. I hope the information within has been of some use to you and will aid you in your decision making as to whether you would buy any of these products. So thanks for watching and see you next time. Ta-ra.